Now we're going to look at some equations that don't look quadratic when they start out, but we can do a substitution, and we'll normally use the letter U, turn it into a quadratic equation, and then solve it from there. Now, you'll know that you can do this when you have something that looks like oops, let me turn on the pen. So a number, and then whatever your variable is, let's just use x here. And this will be 2 times something. So let's just say 2n plus b x to the n plus c equals 0. So here, what we're saying is that the exponent on the first variable is twice what it is on the second one. And those are the only variables you have. Okay, so here it says, the first one says solve 5x to the 4th minus 3x squared minus 2 equals 0. And notice the first exponent is a 4, and then the second one is 2, is half of that. So we're going to let u always be the one that's half of it, the second one. So we're going to let u be x squared. Well, what is u squared then? U squared would be x squared squared, and when you are taking an exponent to an exponent, you multiply it. It would be x to the 4th. So now if we substitute in for u's here, we would have 5u squared minus 3u minus 2 equals 0. And now we can use any of the methods that we learned before to solve this quadratic for u. So I'm going to go ahead and use the quadratic formula. So we're going to say u equals the opposite of b, so negative 3 would be positive 3 plus or minus the square root of b squared, which would be 9, minus 4 times 5 times negative 2, all over 2 times a, 2 times 5 would be 10. Okay, so here we have u equals 3 plus or minus the square root of 49 over 10. So here we'd get 3 plus or minus 7 over 10. So we're going to get u equals 3 plus 7 over 10, which would be 10 over 10, which would be 1. And u equals 3 minus 7 over 10, which would be negative 4 over 10, which reduces to negative 2/5. Now, remember u is equal to x squared, so for each of these u's, we have to set it equal to x squared. So we'd say 1 equals x squared, and we would solve this one for x, so we'd take the square root of both sides. We get plus or minus, so we'd get plus or minus 1 equals x. And we'd also have to do it over here. We'd have to say negative 2/5 equals x squared. So we'd take the square root of both sides here. And the square root of negative 2/5 is going to be I square root of 2/5. So here we actually get 4 solutions. Let's go ahead and write our solutions up here. This is for number 1. We get x equals 1, negative 1, I square root of 2/5, and negative I square root of 2/5. Okay, so we took something that was a 4th power. It followed this pattern where the first one is double the second one, and we were able to do it that way. Okay, here we want to solve x minus 5 square root of x plus 6. Well, the square root of x can actually be written as x to the 1/2 power. Okay, so this follows that same kind of pattern. Why don't I change pen colors just so we know which one is this problem. So here we're going to let u be equal to the square root of x. It's always the middle one. Now remember u squared, well the square root of x squared would just be x. So when we do substitution, we get u squared minus 5u plus 6 equals 0. Now this quadratic we can solve by factoring pretty easily. So we're going to, this factors as u minus 2 and u plus 3. So we'd get u equals 2 if we set u minus 2 equal to 0, and u equals negative 3. Now we have to plug both of those in. So we'd say 2 equals the square root of x. Now to solve for x here, we need to square both sides. So we'd get 4 equals x. And then here we would get negative 3 equals the square root of x. So we'd square both sides and we'd get 9 equals x. Okay, so those would be our solutions. Okay, we've got one more here, so we've got solve w to the 2/3 power plus 6 times w to the 1/3 power minus 7 equals 0. And here, look, the exponent 1/3 is 1/2 of 2/3. So we're going to let u be w to the 1/3, which is the same thing as the cube root of w. And here this will be u squared plus 6u minus 7 equals 0. Let's see if this one factors. We could factor this one as u plus 7 and u minus 1 equals 0, which means u is equal to negative 7 and u is equal to 1. So we're going to put both those here. We have negative 7 equals w to the 1/3. Now that's the same thing as negative 7 equals the cube root of w. And so to solve that, we need to take the cube of both sides. So negative 7 cubed is going to be negative 343. So we get w equals negative 343. And then we would have 1 equals w to the 1/3. So if we cube both sides there, we would just get 1. So w equals 1. So our solution would be w equals 1 or w equals negative 343. So the important thing here is that you can only use this when the exponent on the second one is 1/2 times the exponent on the first, and you're going to let u be your second variable there, the one that has half the exponent.